Oh, it's not plugged in. I was using to charge my phone, I remember. I might have to stop it and start it again.
This is what you have there.
Oh, it's not plugged in. I was using to charge my phone, I remember.
You can hear me.
Hmm?
You can hear me.
Charge my phone, I remember.
You can hear me.
I might have to stop it.
Ready for yours. There.
So it must be picking up the other mic, which it doesn't work properly.
You can hear me. You want to play with the frog.
Is there people watching?
Two.
Oh dear.
3.
They're getting all the behind the scenes. Okay, I think that stabilized everything. Okay, so kill the volume on there. No, thankfully. So I think there's too many things recording audio. I'm just going to mute. Thankfully. Yeah, because there's like a feedback. I'm just going to mute one of them. So I think there's too many things. And we're going to test. Audio. Yeah, because there's like a feedback. I'm just going to mute one of them. All right. Well, the audio is coming through. I'm just going to, hopefully no one complains and it doesn't sound terrible. Instagram. Let me put up this link because this is, now it's recording. It's live, right? It is live. I just want to. Okay, I'm going to just do an Instagram post that we're live on YouTube. There's no chat that you can see.
I see the chat, but no one said it.
Okay, can you do me a favor? Can you maybe go downstairs out of earshot and just test, like, let me know what you're hearing?
With this.
Yeah. We're live on Instagram. Okay. I wasn't really saying anything, but
I heard you.
it sounded okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Instagram is live. YouTube is on. You're watching the YouTube? I just want to see what the Instagram is looking like, and then I'm going to get started.
Are you good with this?
Is that on?
Yeah, but you're like hurting that.
Okay. Oh, you can wave. Wave, 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 wave. That's it. Okay, I think everyone can hear me. So maybe just follow the Instagram chat. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. I have my assistant here, Sarah. She's moderating. So
She said hi.
she said hi back. So I wanted to do a talk on weight loss and diet, on all the confusion that everyone seems to be having about it, because most of my patients want to lose weight and no one knows what to do. So I'm going to talk about the things that have worked, and we have a cool system here. We're on Instagram and we're streaming on YouTube, so hopefully everyone hears me well, and you can ask some questions on the Instagram chat. I don't know if our YouTube chat's working. So if you're on Instagram, you can send a message. Sarah, I told Sarah if it's really like on point, like to interrupt. If not, we can just take some questions afterwards. I'll probably talk for about 15 minutes or so, and then I'll probably just wrap up. And if there's any questions, and I got an eBay notification. That's important. I'm going to mute that. All right, so weight loss demystified. Stay slim and satisfied. I thought it had a nice ring to it. These little logos kind of highlight the point of this. So weight management is affecting most of our patients here. And the key with that bullseye is to have the most particular and most specific program that meets the individual needs of that client. So everyone's different. Everyone can benefit from similar programs, but there's a point where one thing really stands out for one person. We got to be able to identify that, whether it's a hormonal thing, a food sensitivity, a thyroid, whatever it may be. And that's why we do a lot of testing as needed. And then the last point highlights that I want the results to be long-standing and like a consistent thing. So I don't want someone to like lose 15 pounds in a month and then gain 10 pounds 6 weeks later, because then we didn't have lasting results and we didn't have like a functional change. So weight loss is never just like a short-term fix. All right, to diet or not to diet. So the idea here is that everyone wants to know what's the right diet. A picture containing a person. That's important. It's a distraction. All right. So of all the diets that I've experienced, I'm going to touch upon the ones I think are most interesting and maybe why I think they're not the greatest. So calorie deficit. So if you starve, you will lose weight. But how long can you starve before you die? So that's something I want people to think about. If there's some doctors in the area that like their program is to starve you and you'll lose weight, but then once you stop their program, you gain the weight back, which is disappointing. And a lot of people, they get confused. They're like, I lost so much weight, I was so happy, and then I gained it back. I'm like, but what you did to lose the weight wasn't a sustainable process. Like, you can't just starve. You can't just eat celery forever. So I want a program that's going to be like a lifelong thing where it's like I just eat like this and it works and I feel great. Points are, it may be hard for some people on the Instagram to see the little points, the actual key points. I'm going to upload the PowerPoint, so if anyone's missing anything, you'll be able to see it in detail afterwards. Points, a lot of programs that people sign up for, foods are assigned a point value. Like a piece of cake might be 20 points, and if you're allowed 30 points in a day, some people will have a piece of cake and then 3 apples, and then they're done for the day. So obviously that's not going to work, and that's a bad program. But a lot of people do it because it kind of helps them portion control. So that part's good. But if you're going to portion control garbage, then it's not going to help you in the long run. Low carb or no carb. A lot of people can't metabolize carbs or can't digest them well. So sometimes they just feel better not having carbs. And maybe they feel less bloated. Maybe they don't feel so foggy in the afternoon. But long-term carbs, without carbs, your brain doesn't function as well, and you might be sluggish. And some people just don't do well on a high-fat, high-protein diet. And then conversely, for vegans, I find that there's not enough protein. So you end up having like a lot of vegetables and starches because you feel hungry. How's it looking, Sarah? Any questions? No? Anyone waving?
Yeah.
Okay, well, wave back. I always bug vegans. I give them a hard time. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's hard for most people to do it properly. And if you want to lose weight, having a diet high in starches and potatoes and that sort of thing, you're not going to lose weight. Paleo and keto, a lot of people are moving closer to a paleo or keto style of eating. I don't like keto, like the strict keto, to be in ketosis, which means that you're actually burning down, like you're practically at the point where you're burning down your muscle because you have no carb in your body. There are a lot of side effects to that. Most people can't do it properly. You feel miserable, you got bad breath, all that good stuff. So it doesn't work. Anti-inflammatory, I think this is closer to what people should get an idea for, like identifying what kind of foods are causing inflammation, because a lot of time excess weight is just an inflammatory process. If you cut out dairy, don't be surprised you lose 5-10 pounds in that week, and then you'll gain it back if you start having it again. So that speaks to something in that food that your body's not metabolizing, an allergy, a sensitivity, whatnot. Portion control, I think that is actually very useful. Most people grossly overeat. They actually don't recognize how many calories is in a bowl of rice as opposed to half a cup. And when you just have a meal, you think, well, that's a normal amount of rice, right? But then if you're inactive, which is something we're going to get into, then you have no business eating that many carbs. It's how it is. And then calorie counting, which sort of dovetails with portion control. Some people get a little bit too fixed and they get paranoid about calorie counting, and then they like start under eating and all that not good stuff. So what works? And obviously there's all these different nuances, and it's easy why people get confused. So I try to come up with something that I try to find a program that I can commit to, but we'll get there. So we have to do an assessment. So just like I said earlier, everyone needs to have like a customized, a very specific program. So we have to know exactly what's going on. When we do our intakes, we do a complete review. The in-body analysis, which is the single greatest tool that we have here outside of my microscope, that is allowing us to identify your body fat, your lean muscle, your basal metabolic rate. Most people don't even have an idea what that is. It's really important to know. Like your basal metabolic rate is how many calories your body will burn doing nothing, just lying there. If you are eating way more than your basal metabolic rate and you're not physically active, you will gain weight. And it's easy to do that because a lot of people have a metabolic rate of like 1,200 calories. It's really low because they don't do a lot. They just sit there. And if you're going to do that and you're having 1,800 calories in a day, even if it's all healthy food, you're going to be gaining weight. And the other things we do, in-house and external lab testing, food sensitivity testing, everyone should do this test at some point and do it somewhat regularly every 3-4 years because it's going to show you what your antibodies are to the foods that you're eating. It's similar to allergy testing, like if you were to go to an allergist and do a scratch test, but the truth is you don't eat food through your skin. So it's a different antibody hypersensitivity reaction. So you need the blood test, and it's going to help you identify the degree of sensitivity you have to certain food proteins. And so many people say they're lactose intolerant. It's a misnomer. It's not an accurate statement. Like, you're not allergic to the lactose. You're probably allergic to the. You can't be allergic to a lactose. You can't be allergic to a carbohydrate. Allergies are a protein interaction. So it would have to be the protein in milk, like whey or casein, that you're reacting to. So sensitivity testing is a must. Other tests that might identify why you've gained weight or having a hard time losing weight is your cortisol. Your stress response might be off the charts, or you can be completely devoid of stress hormones because you've been depleted for so long. HbA1c, which is kind of confirms a type of diabetes or dysglycemia. It actually measures how much glucose is stuck to your red blood cells in the last 3 months. Gives us an idea of how well you regulate your blood sugar, meaning how well you eat. So if someone has a really high HbA1c, they're probably just not eating throughout the day and having heavier meals at night. They're skipping meals, they're snacking constantly, so their blood sugar is all over. And then that leads into the insulin and insulin sensitivity, and then all these other conditions like PCOS that are spiraling from an excess amount of carbs being available and the cells having to upregulate their insulin receptors to be able to respond to this, and over time they become insensitive. They need more and more receptors and more insulin, and then after a while every carb that you consume just gets stored as fat. And then thyroid, we want to identify if you do in fact have like an underactive thyroid, and most times an underactive thyroid probably starts out as a overactive thyroid, and that happens when your adrenal gland is collapsed. So we assess that. And then, once we do all that, I get people to do a diet log. So I want to know what they're eating, how much, what time, because timing of meals is just as important as what you're eating. And kind of getting an idea of what your output is. So we know your basal metabolic rate, and if you know your physical activity, there's lots of apps that you can use to track your calorie output and your training and what you need to intake to necessitate that activity and the food that you're consuming. So that helps us identify if you're under or overeating. It helps us identify what digestive problems, because we didn't even talk too much about, besides the sensitivities, sometimes, and one of the main things I'm identifying is what's called hypochlorhydria, which means an underproduction of stomach acid, and it's a stress response. So if you are in fight or flight, Sarah, you know what fight or flight is, eh? Sarah is always in fight or flight. She never eats. She like, yesterday what did you have? Mashed potato all day? So you need to eat, and you have to be able to digest what you're consuming. And most people, because they don't have sufficient stomach acid production, they're not absorbing and breaking down protein. So then that's causing digestive inflammatory markers to go up, and increases your risk of food sensitivities. Then there's hormonal imbalance, and that's a whole other cascade, and the stress response. So we have to kind of treat the causes, treat the symptoms, and the diet goes a long way into like being part of the prescription, and food is medicine. It's also important to track your progress, because weight loss is not a linear process. Some people will lose a lot of weight quickly. Some people, it takes about 6 weeks before their body actually gets the clue that's like, oh, something's changing. Maybe I'll start dropping a few pounds. A lot of times, what happens is a person will come in after like 3 weeks. They're following my program, whatever I specify for them, and they do the in-body assessment, and their body fat is down, their muscle mass is up, their metabolic rate is better, their clothes fit better, they have more energy, they're the same weight. So they're upset, but they're upset because they were fixed on like the number. They want the weight to go down, and I get that. So they're kind of like that's the last step in the process. Like, they're fixed on all the other things. All the other parameters that are actually more important, they are going to change first for some people. But eventually the weight does start to fall off as Those are usually people that have a high stress load and their cortisol is spiking. So then their body wants to hold on to the weight even though the composition is changing. Let's see here. Most problems with previous weight loss experiences. So that's another thing I deal with. Like people will come in and it's like, yeah, I went to this doctor and I went to this clinic and we did this and I was getting these shots. And so what happens? The too low calorie category, these are the people that are just, they're being starved. And of course you gain it all back. Often people are not assessed like we assess people. Like sometimes you just get a diet plan and you're on your way. So I think it's important to actually understand why you gain weight or you're having a hard time losing weight in the first place. Another group is they just aren't active. Like I don't think anyone can realistically expect to lose significant weight unless you're going to be active in some way. Like I know a lot of people like they feel like they're overweight or they have an injury or limitation, but there has to be something that involves movement that will allow their metabolic rate to increase. And then another thing that people do is like they are overly rigid and overly strict. So they never cheat. They don't ever have a carb. They are too dogmatic. And I actually find that over time, those are the people that are like, just screw it. I'm going to eat whatever I want now. And then they don't adhere to anything because they get frustrated. And even if they had some gains, it's not long lasted. Okay, what else? Other mistakes in weight loss. Under eating. Yeah, so you have to make sure you're getting enough good calories. Starving yourself is not sustainable. You will lose weight initially, and after a while, some of the patients that are the most overweight that I see, they are grossly under consuming calories, like maybe not even 1,000 calories. So they're like, I hardly eat. I don't know why I am this size. It's like your metabolism has shut down. That's why. And then they tend to skip meals. So a lot of people, they'll be like, I intermittent fast. And it's like, you don't intermittent fast. You just don't want to eat breakfast. So it's not the same thing. Skipping meals shuts down your metabolism. And then other people just eat tons of carbs. They don't eat enough fat or healthy fats or protein. So then they're never full. They're never satisfied or satiated. So then you have carbs again. These people who graze, they're kind of eating, I just have a little bit, but I have it a little bit every hour. So then obviously your metabolism and your insulin is, it wreaks havoc. Zero carbs. These are people who are miserable. Right? These are people like, I do everything right. I can't lose a pound. I hate everything. Their mood sucks. No exercise people. So again, like I mentioned, if you don't move, your metabolism is shut down. You won't ever lose weight. Addressing stressors, cortisol. Cortisol is a weight gainer. If you're stressed out, if you worry a lot, if you, don't know how to relax, you don't sit down, you're an excessive workaholic, like you just work until you pass out, your cortisol will cause you to perpetually be heavier. Because when your body is under stress, it doesn't know if it's getting another meal. It doesn't know if you'll have food. It's like a starvation state of mind. And your body will just hold on to calories, store everything as fat, and then that's obviously not what you want. Some people have a negative attitude about dieting and exercise, resenting the processes and decreased motivation. I think that speaks for itself. And unrealistic or unhealthy goals. Don't aim for the weight you were 20 years ago. So, yeah, a lot of people, they're like, I want to fit into my wedding dress. I'm like, yeah, but it's 50 years ago. I don't know. Or like just every decade of your life, I usually have a general, every decade of your life, it's normal to gain 5 pounds. So, in a sense. So after 30 years, if you're 15 pounds heavier than you were when out of high school, you're probably okay because our body carries on like a lot of pollution. And it takes a lot of effort to like detoxify to that extent. But I don't think most people who are 15 pounds overweight after 30 years, they're not too worried about it. I think that are like 50 plus pounds from where they were in the past, they probably are like, okay, what can you do for me? So what works? The Mediterranean diet. I think there's so many studies and even like movies that talk about the benefits of like the diet that targets around the Mediterranean and how Italians eat and they live forever. at least on that one island. I think it's Corsica. You ever see that? Okay, that's a good. It's on Netflix, I think. Moderate calories, daily physical activity, minimal starch. So again, North America, this flies in the face. Like we just have excessive carbs, excessive calories available, no physical activity. Of course, we're going to be overweight. Addressing stress, irregular eating habits, sleep patterns, downtime. So our stress response is always full blast until we pass out at night. And that's, if we can reverse that, then your body knows how to heal, and you will just, actually it's just swelling at that point. Preparing meals versus ordering. There's a lot of value in like grocery shopping, trying new recipes, avoiding processed food, takeout, pre-made food, all that stuff. We have an Uber Eats mentality. If it's just like bring me food, shove it in my face. Lifestyle change versus short-term goal. If you want to lose weight quickly because you're going to the beach or you're going on vacation, you can lose 20 pounds in a month and then gain it back next month if that's your goal, but it's obviously not important. It's not putting importance on your health. Whereas a lifestyle change, you can actually enjoy food, be healthy, be active, and weight won't be an issue. And then the other thing that works is having everyone in the household on the same page, because if so-and-so brings chips and beer and crap in the house and it's a temptation. Whereas if everyone can kind of just eat healthy all together, it's kind of like a fortifying effect, and you sort of support each other. Supplements. I only include this. I said no, we're good. I only include this because everyone, especially during talks, they just want to know that. Like, I could have just skipped to this page in theory, and then just like half the people just disappear. I've had talks where I'm talking to people, and they just start just looking, and as soon as I say a supplement, they just start writing things down. The supplements are there if they apply to you. Okay. Digestive support. Betaine HCl. Betaine HCl is way better than any digestive enzyme. Digestive enzymes are useful. A lot of people, they benefit from it. Yes, you produce your own enzymes in theory if you're not stressed out. But if you are stressed out, you don't produce sufficient amounts, nor do you produce sufficient amounts of hydrochloric acid, which is essential for protein degradation and absorption. Fiber, psyllium, ground flax. There's fiber in apples. There's fiber in some starchy vegetables, the peels, and we just don't get enough. And fiber helps you go to the washroom. It also helps you regulate your blood sugar. So that's critical. Inositol I usually recommend for anyone who's got PCOS. I also recommend it for people who have poor blood sugar regulation. Every time I prescribe it, everyone's like, especially if it's a guy, he'll call me and be like, I'm not a woman, I don't have ovaries, because on the label it says for ovarian syndrome, but that's a label claim. So inositol, in Canada, you can make that health claim. But you don't have to have ovaries to need help with your blood sugar regulation. So it actually reduces your cravings for carbs. It helps stabilizes your hormones. You feel more energy throughout the day. If anyone who falls asleep after lunch, you need inositol. Berberine is another extract that is very similar and also helps with insulin regulation. Adaptogens, I like using adaptogens. These are like stress hormone supporters. If you want to check, someone's here. So I use like Stress Calm and ADR and all kinds of good stuff like that. So these are herbal extracts that improve the output of stress hormones from your adrenal gland and helps reconstitute the adrenal gland. And because that's where your cortisol and your stress hormones are coming from. So if your adrenals are weak, you're going to gain weight and you're going to feel sluggish and you're going to want more carbs. Protein powder. Everyone should have a protein powder that agrees with them. Do not use whey. Whey protein is dairy-based and it's just going to bloat you. Bodybuilders swear by it because it makes them more muscular, but that's not why we're using it. We're using it to make you feel full. And then B vitamins. Everyone should be on the vitamin B complex. Check out the B12 levels for energy, cellular function. Just the noises in the clinic.
I guess.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So that's a little crash course on supplements. Most of my patients take home a couple of these, but then there's other assessments that we want to make sure what's the most useful. Realistic goals. You can lose 5 pounds per month. You can lose more, but I would want to be monitoring, making sure that you're eating enough and you're not overtraining or anything that, like, I had someone lose 17 pounds. Actually, I had one person lose 20 pounds in a month, but I think that was a little aggressive. There's a question? What's that?
How often can we have a B12 shot?
So assuming you know the levels of your B12, so that's a blood test. Lately, a lot of people have been getting like really, really sky high levels of B12. I'm not sure if they've changed the parameters of how they measure B12. If you have low B12 or you have a moderate, or you just like you're not above the normal limit, you can get a B12 shot weekly and then monthly and then like every 3 months. So if someone like really sluggish and tired, a history of anemia, I would do B12 shots 1 a week for a month, and then once a month for another 3 months, and then space it out. And then just keep checking their levels over time to see what they're feeling. Because usually people notice the most improvement initially, and then afterwards it's just like maintenance. That's good?
Yep.
That was good moderation. Let's see here. Other things to focus on in terms of realistic goals. How does your clothes fit? Evaluating body composition change versus the total amount of weight you lose. Like you can lose 30 pounds, but if you lose 20 pounds of muscle, it's totally flying in the face of what we're trying to do here. That's pretty much what I said. Your ideal weight might not be as low as you want, but makes you feel the way you hope. But might not be as low as you want, but makes more energy, less bloating. So let's say you want to lose 20 pounds, but your body reaches a 15-pound weight loss, and you hit all your goals, and you're feeling good, and all your symptoms are gone. That's probably the right weight for you at this time. And then just seeing month by month how things are changing, less symptoms, more motivation, because once you start this, it tends to spur more things. It's like, I got a gym membership, or I made a gym in the house, or now I'm doing these classes. And so then it's not just like I change my eating, I take these supplements. Now I'm doing things, and it's perpetuating how I'm feeling. I'm feeling good overall. I'm feeling better each month. I wanted to include real world examples, because a lot of people are like, I do all the right things. And I'm going to come up with some examples of why it may be right or wrong. So this first group, skipped breakfast, a light lunch, and a balanced dinner. So that's one scenario, versus a large breakfast, a balanced lunch, and a light dinner. So Sarah, since you're here, which one do you think is the better option?
Right.
The right?
Yeah.
My right?
That side.
It's both. It's all the right. It's correct. Yes. And do you know why?
You shouldn't eat a lot late at night.
Well, that's one good reason. You shouldn't skip breakfast. Remember, I hate people who skip breakfast. I don't hate them, but I discourage that because it messes with your blood sugar. It's that fake intermittent fasting. And so, you should actually kind of tighter your calories at more earlier and less in the throughout the day, because as the day goes on, you're less active and you're more inclined to store those calories as fat. Next scenario, snack. Apple in the morning and crackers after lunch versus a protein shake in the morning, veggie sticks, and hummus after lunch. Which one? Don't pick which one you would do. Pick the one you should do. It's tricky, right?
Second one.
The right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just go number 2. Yeah, that's number 2, because I like protein. The ones on the left here, apple and cracker, those are just carbs.
No problem.
You're going to be hungry. Yeah, no protein, exactly. Okay, third scenario. Here's a treat. A homemade oat ball with dark chocolate and hemp hearts versus a fruit salad. Now,
One.
the first one, number on the left.
No, 2.
The second one, the fruit salad.
I don't know this one.
You don't
It's
know?
a treat, so
Well, they're both treats.
yeah.
So you have to have treats sometimes, right?
First one.
The first one, yeah. Well, there's hemp hearts, there's fiber, dark chocolate, so there's no dairy. I like that. There's a little bit of protein. Fruit salad, there's like very little. It's all carbs. And people just eat like a big bowl of fruit and then they crash. They have they practically get diabetes after a while. Last scenario. Every weekday I start off with 1 black coffee and at dinner I have a half a glass of wine. Versus I finish a bottle of wine on the weekend and an ice cap on Sunday. Which one would you pick?
First one.
The first one. Why?
Because shouldn't finish a bottle of wine.
What if during the week you're having a half a glass of wine for like 5 days is like a bottle of wine? So you're having the same amount.
Black coffee is also a better option than an ice cap.
But you're having 5 black coffees versus 1 ice cap.
True. It's a tricky one. It's a trick question.
See, they get harder. But you were right. It is the first one, the black coffee and a half a glass of wine. And the main reason is the ice cap's full of sugar, even if it's just once a week. And then the bottle of wine, like that is a large volume. It's something to do with glycemic load. So there's a lot of sugar coming in all at once, as opposed to a little bit kind of spread out over the week. Mm-hmm. It's a trick. A little trick. You passed, even though you probably do all the opposite.
I do worse than the opposite.
Okay, you can't work here. Pitfalls to avoid. Too many cheats. So a lot of people, when I give them a diet, they're like, but can I have, like, my birthday's coming up. I'm like, okay, on your birthday you can have whatever you want. And they're like, well, then it's my cousin's birthday and then my neighbor's birthday. I'm like, so you're not going to follow. Like, you need to sort of be strict for the initial, I usually say 3 to 6 weeks of, like, be 99% on point. Because if you're going to cheat early on, you'll never sustain it, and that would become like a lifestyle change. And then the opposite is an issue where you never indulge and you become bitter and resentful of me specifically, and then that leads you to rebound eat. So that's something to avoid. If you fall off, don't feel like all is lost. Just start again tomorrow. It sounds like it should be on a t-shirt. So a lot of people, they're like, you know what, I went out and I ate like a pig this weekend. I hate myself. I'm like, don't hate yourself. Did you have fun? Yeah. I was like, well, okay, start again tomorrow. It's like, no, because now I gained it all back, and what's the point? Like, so I tell people, muscle mass, like when we do the in-body, I can tell if someone used to work out 10 years ago. Because I'll see that they have a fair amount of muscle mass. Muscle mass is like, I say it's like riding a bike, learning how to ride a bike. You don't really forget. Like maybe you're rusty, it takes you a little bit to get back into it, but muscle mass is sort of dormant. It's there, and it helps maintain your metabolism. So you're actually able, once you reignite those muscles, you start losing calories and weight quickly. So training, like it's money in the bank, always do it. Stopping the positive changes when you are content. What worked for you is sustainable as part of your life for good. So I tell people, avoid committing to something, and then as soon as you cross your metaphoric finish line, don't give up. Like let's say you want to lose 20 pounds, you lose 20 pounds, and then they have a blowout. And then that blowout leads them to like, well, I'm kind of like, I'm fine, gain 5 pounds, gain 10. You just lost all your gains. Don't do it. Underestimating the role that stress, sleep, relaxing, hobbies, meal prepping, and being positive. All of that. So people think that weight is not associated with each of these things. Weight is just like, well, I don't know I don't know what else I have to do. Investigate all these areas. Do you sleep? What time do you go to bed? I go to bed at 1. Well, then your adrenal glands are shot, so your stress hormones are off the chart. I don't know how to relax. Okay, well, same problem. I don't have any hobbies. Well, why do I need a hobby? I'm busy. Well, it's like, how do you de-stress? How do you turn on your parasympathetic nervous system that allows you to digest and rest and heal? Meal prepping, it's a waste of time. Well, no, it's not a waste of time. It's actually probably the most significant thing you can do for your health. And being positive, the same. Other bad habits. I'm Italian. Of course, I eat pasta every day. Sarah, do you eat pasta every day?
Every week.
Every week. Every week's okay. So there's some people just like they feel like they have an excuse. It's like, well, I of course I eat this. Like, I've always ate this. It's like I have cornflakes for breakfast with regular milk. Like, but I've always done that. It's like just because you've always done it doesn't mean that you have to continue. I don't want to cook 2 different meals, so I eat what everyone else has. That's a big one. So that's part of like if the household is all on the same page, it makes it easier for everyone. So maybe everyone needs just to eat healthier. Oh, they're not going to eat gluten-free. It's like, well, lie to them. Tell them it is. I have lactose-free milk. That's right. That's okay, right? No. Again, lactose is a sugar. The milk protein is the problem. Don't have lactose-free milk. Have other milks. Like it depends on what you're having it in. If you're having it in cereal, just have like oat milk or rice milk. It's like the ventilation. It's okay. It's hard to eat healthy at a restaurant. That's not true. You can eat healthy anywhere. You can just tell the waiter, tell the cook, like, hey, don't use butter, don't use this. I don't need a full baked potato. Just have a protein on a salad. You can do it. I have some birthdays coming up, so there's no point to start your diet. What do you think I was going to say to that? Start it anyway. It's exactly. That's right. Well, can I cheat? Moderate your cheat. Well, I don't want to be left out. Okay, well, have half a glass of wine and just a bite of cake. You still took part. In summary, weight is a reflection of your overall health. All aspects must be assessed. The best diet matches your physiology, your sensitivities, but meets your physical needs. Supplements are a small component of the puzzle to fill deficiencies. Exercise, movement is critical. Your diet should satisfy you. Food is not a reward or a coping strategy. That's deep. That should be like a whole other talk on its own, because people use food as a reward, and that's where then they start falling into that problem. Body composition is a wonderful tool to track progress. So everyone who's in the chat, I invite them to have a free in-body assessment. So we'll just track everyone who's involved, and then we'll make sure that they get like a note on their file, or if they're new to the clinic, just mention that you follow the talk, and that's like a $50 value. So that's pretty good, right? The InBody is really cool. It's an amazing machine. A lot of gyms are starting to get like a version of it, but ours is the best. So it measures body fat, lean muscle, metabolic rate, water levels, all kinds of good stuff. It actually will specifically tell you how many pounds you need to lose, how much pounds of fat, and how much if you need to gain or lose muscle. They never say to lose muscle, but to gain muscle. So everyone in the chat, you got a free InBody for joining us today. I think that's everything on the presentation. I'll stop for some questions if anyone has. Sarah will read them off on the Instagram chat. I don't think the YouTube has a chat. Just a bunch of waivers.
Everyone's saying thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us. I'll just give it another minute because I think there's a bit of delay. I hope the sound was okay. This is the first time we used this setup. The Instagram, I think I'm just running it on one of my phones. The YouTube, I feel like will look and sound better. I don't know if there's a chat active in there. Okay, if there's no one, is there anything? You're not?
Overtraining, what is a good amount to work out?
That's a good question. Who asked that? It's okay.
Cara Rosaria?
Okay.
Sarah? Cara?
C-A-R-A?
Yes.
Cara. No. she's an old friend. Cara, so overtraining, I usually say overtraining, it's like a subjective thing, but if you feel sore after every time you exercise, you're probably overtraining, assuming you're doing it more than 4 to 5 days times a week. Some people can train every day, but it would be maybe different intensities, vary it. And then also it depends on your ability to heal and recover and your diet and other responsibilities. So I tell everyone at least 3 days a week is a healthy amount of activity. If you can do more, great. But if you're like some people, they do half an hour cardio and half an hour weights every day, I feel like that's way too much. Some people say I do 45 minutes to an hour of cardio every day. I'm like, that's a waste of time. I would do 15 minutes of cardio and then do some strength training. So I feel like some people err on the side of more cardio, thinking that they're going to be burning calories. So actually, this didn't come up in the talk, but if you're going to burn more net calories, you're going to do so by having more muscle mass and doing strength training. You're going to burn more calories throughout the week, even when you're not physically active, more so than you would just burn 600 calories, doing the Stairmaster for 2 hours, because that's an isolated amount of calorie loss, and it doesn't necessarily improve your metabolic rate. Whereas if you strength train regularly, your body's always burning calories. So people with more muscle mass, they always run a little bit hotter. So amazing question. Thank you. Did it slide away?
What do you have to say to someone who thinks that sometimes it can be depressing and self-defeating to do an in-body?
So that's actually an amazing question too, because I've had that. I just tell the person, don't look. I'll just say, these numbers are for me. I don't need to tell you specifics. It's good for me to track maybe where you were. And I usually say, today's reading doesn't matter. It matters in relationship to the next time you do your measurement. So I've done this before, where I just put a sticky on top of the display, and I just don't show them the printout, because if that's going to be a setback or like a demotivator, it's still useful information for me to know, but you don't have to see it. And then I can use that current information, update your plan, and then the next time you come in, you do it again. I think they will probably perceive that there was improvement, and then they'll be like, oh wow, I didn't realize I was X weight. And then the next time I come in, I lost 10 pounds, I lost 15 pounds. And just the fact that you've made that progress, it doesn't matter what your weight is at that point, it's just that you've made net progress. So that's a really good question. And I know I'm a little flippant when I speak, but obviously this is a very sensitive topic. And I just try to be as transparent and direct. Because if someone is, I'm not going to what's it called? Pet them and be like, oh, it's okay, you can have a little. I'm like, this is your goal. I'm going to help you get there. But of course, the emotional side is always, we have to be attentive to it. Are you praying or are you reading? I can see your hands folded. I think that's everything?
Unless anyone has any more questions.
Okay, so anyone, if we're going to end it. Thank you all again. If I didn't answer your question, if we missed it, you can send me a direct message on the Instagram. It'll come directly to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. I appreciate you all joining us. I'm going to look at all the numbers afterwards and see what kind of, how popular we were. But I'm going to do this regularly. I'm going to invite the other practitioners here as well. I think it's a good forum. And we didn't have a huge turnout tonight in person. Sarah's doing this in the room. But I think as the mandates are lifted and people will be feeling more comfortable heading out and the weather's getting better, we're happy to host in-house as well. So I invite people to pay attention to that on the Instagram. And if anyone has any requests in terms of topics to talk about, I'm open to that as well. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. I'm going to end the video now. Any last... Was there anything?
No.
Okay. Stop streaming.